Anybody else just want to curl up with that song like it's a blankie? When we're talking about who are the poor, which we are today, it seems to me that time enough is part of what true abundance is. Time enough, being with your people enough, whoever your peeps might happen to be, that's richness. When I first came here and did my candidating weekend, one of the 3 panel interviews I had over the course of 2 days, 4 panels, was with the practitioners that were here at the time. And when I sat down, I was like, oh, thank you, God, I'm with my peeps. And they thought I meant the Easter candy and were very confused, but you know that feeling when you just come in and you know you're home? Even if it isn't your own living room, that is what we try to offer here. And for many people, coming in and being told that they are accepted for who they are, exactly who they are, exactly for who they are not, that might be the first time they've ever heard that. But it's part of the healing energy of this space. And we all get to play in that, and we all get to add to that. We all, as we come in here with our least judgmental selves, the best we can do on any given day, as we come in and practice that as a spiritual practice, that is what creates the healing energy of the center. And so to me, the poor would be anyone who does not have access to that kind of a sanctuary, that kind of a safe space. Now here's the good news. There's no such thing as someone who does not have access to it, because each and every one of us can build it in our own hearts and minds at any time. I never said easy. I never said obvious. It might take a lot of work to create that space in you. But true abundance, true richness requires that at some point that sanctuary becomes your own heart and mind. Reverend Dr. Kathy Hearn used to say, you know you've done your forgiveness work when the person has safe passage through your mind. They're not going to get jumped. So let me ask you this. Do you have safe passage through your mind? Whether or not you're wearing makeup, whether or not you remember to shave, whatever it is you happen to shave. Legs, guys, come on. Are you that kind of rich that you carry your sanctuary with you? I would suggest to you that that is your divine inheritance, that is what you get to have, just like you get to breathe in this room. And it doesn't go away just because you're having a bad hair day or week or month or life, for that matter. True abundance works like this. Take a deep breath. Now let go of it. Nobody here, I'm willing to bet, thought, oh my God, I've taken a really deep breath. I have to breathe shallowly for the rest of the hour to make up for it. And nobody here thought, I've taken my deep breath. I never get to breathe in again. True abundance is having good flow to you just like air, and it being so obvious that it's yours, you don't even think about it. Right? Okay, now let's get to the talk I actually wrote. So when I first came to the question, who are the poor, I, of course, went and got some stats. I promise you there's a part after that, so if this part's depressing, don't worry. We know to keep moving through it. In 2016, 1 in 8 Americans and 1 in 5 children were considered to live below the poverty line. Now, the poverty line, I don't know, it's like enough to pay your rent and food and maybe the occasional latte, right? No. The federal government in 2016 put the poverty line for a family of 4, meaning having 2 children, at $24,339. Ladies and gentlemen, I couldn't live on that by myself. I would suggest the people who put the poverty line there couldn't live on that by themselves. Other studies show that a family of 4 would actually need at least $42,400 annually. So poverty, as a matter of numbers, we don't have to look too far away. We discussed here a few years ago, it was just a few years ago, we gave money to the Humboldt School District to help continue a program that allowed children to bring home a backpack full of food for the weekend. Because if they didn't get that backpack, they probably would not know where their food was coming from if it was coming. I believe in Yavapai County, it's 1 in 4 children in Yavapai County are food insecure. They don't know where their food is coming from. That's a really low bar. That's a really, really low bar. And it does not mean that the other, 3 out of the 4, the other 2 out of the 3 children or the 3 out of the 4 children don't deserve all the good they have. It does not mean that we're all horrible adults because we haven't fed all the children yet. What it means is that the divine within us has given us the opportunity to see where we can live better, where we can live bigger. That's all that means. And we absolutely can do that. The thinking around poverty in this country tends to be pretty shame-based. Would you agree with that? We know as practitioners of religious science that there is absolute abundance for all of us. And yet, we hear world leaders like Margaret Thatcher say poverty is a personality disorder. Yeah, she said it. We shame our poor. Like there's something wrong with them. Something wrong with the way they're living. Well, there is. But it isn't because they're bad. And lest we forget and think that we are immune to that, Charles Fillmore said that poverty is a sin. Charles Fillmore was one of the founders of Unity, who I quote a lot. Now, he didn't say people who live in poverty are a sin. He said the experience of poverty is a sin, and he didn't say whose sin it is. When we talk about sin, what I do not mean that which sends you to hell. There is no hell, couldn't send you there if I wanted to. Ignore that part when we get to the talk about, building the budget and everything. Sin means we are working from a mistaken belief, a belief that is not true. And it has consequences. Just like if I honestly believe that 2 and 2 are 5, there will be consequences when I put together my checkbook, yes? It doesn't make me bad, it just makes me bad at math. Maybe even a little silly. That's okay. I can do silly. There is a wonderful TED Talk. Thank God for TED Talks. I get the best stuff out of those, right? We live in an abundant time where all we have to do is go to those. You go to Papa Google and all your answers are right there. The Divine Father. A guy by the name of Robert Bregman did a talk on TED Talks. It's from May of 2017. The name of the talk is Poverty Isn't a Lack of Character, It's a Lack of Cash. Duh! How did we miss that? How did we miss that in our group mind? What he says was that there were a group of American psychologists that went to India to work with a particular group of people who were farmers of sugarcane. These people were poor most of the year. 60% of their income came all at once. And so what did they do? They did an IQ test to figure out how these people were living in poverty. You know that while they were living in poverty and while they were feeling rich, they tested at a 14-point difference in IQ. Having that sense of anxiety drops the amount of brain matter you have to think clearly with. If you want some kind of a way to think about that, imagine that you have to pull an all-nighter. That will drop your IQ the following day by about the same amount. Imagine now that I have taken away your coffee as well. Sorry. So, part of what we do is that we look at the thought processes that got us to create the world we're living in now, and we decide, without shame or blame, which ones we like and which ones we're not so fond of. A guy by the name of Gary Simmons wrote a book called The Eye, meaning the letter I, the eye of the storm. He says that imagine that no one had the ability to judge another. The ability to judge another. Instead, people would simply ask for what they need or for what's missing for them. How would your life be different if this was your lifestyle and practice? That none of us had the ability to go to judgment, so all we did was say, okay, so this is uncomfortable. What's gone sideways? What do I need to fix? And then I ask for it. Can you imagine how many marriage and family therapists would go out of business? I was listening to Marianne Williamson this week, and she told the story of the Good Samaritan in a way I hadn't heard it before. So I'd like to share that with you. The Good Samaritan sees somebody begging alms by the side of the road, and because they are the Good Samaritan, of course they give. And then they walk on. They see another beggar, so of course there's more alms to give. They walk on. On their walk, they see another beggar. And because they're a Good Samaritan, of course they give. Marianne says, perhaps we need to be the conscious Samaritan and wonder why there's so much poverty around us. Chase the issue kind of further upstream and see if we can heal it at the source. Now, as religious scientists, one of the things we know is that when we go to the source, what we're doing is going to the one mind. There's a reason we call it first cause. You know, there's a cause and then there's an effect. First cause is always the mind of God. We chase it all the way back to our divine oranges? Ha! I must be vitamin C deficient or something. To its divine origins. But we can also work with what we call secondary cause. Secondary cause doesn't get us all the way back to our divine mind, but it looks at, instead of saying that the poor are just bad people and we'll punish them, it goes back to perhaps that thought is part of the problem. And so we start working from a different idea. Portugal experienced something in about 2001 where they opened up, having been kind of a very controlled society, they opened up to the greater world and experienced commerce and experienced coming into the 21st century with the rest of the developed nations. And what they found was a lot of drug problems. And, of course, at that time, with all the ignorance about what comes with a drug problem, AIDS came into their country in a big way. Actually, that was the 1970s, sorry. The fix came in 2001. To get an understanding of this, a full 1% of the population was a heroin addict. And I was just like, well, 1% doesn't sound that high. In America, that would be most of the state of California. In America, that would be 32.7 million here. And California has 37 million as of like 2016. So those were the numbers I was able to put together. This was a problem. They had a big problem. They had the highest rates of AIDS in the entire European Union. So in 2001, somebody got a bright idea. The rest of the world is having a drug problem, and so are we. Maybe the fix everybody has been using for the past 100 years of making drugs criminal, not just illegal, but criminal, maybe that's not the best idea of how to handle this. So in 2001, what they did was decriminalize drugs. Drug dealers still go to jail. It's not like they're saying, here, take them. Not giving out opioids to everybody on the street at, Halloween or whatever. What they did was say, if you are caught using drugs and it is negatively affecting your life, rather than just fine you or send you to jail, we're going to get you help. They started treating it as a medical problem. And they took out the part about the shame. You're bad because you have an addiction. We look down on you because you're a drunk or a drug addict or poor. They took that part out and instead sent in people who were healers. Now in 2010, austerity measures hit. And so a few things had to shift. But the person whose work I was reading was Gonçalves Fonseca in Time magazine. And to quote him, he said, 2 state-sponsored outreach teams made up of psychologists, social workers, and nurses, healers, continue to travel each day to find addicts and to get them the treatment they need. Quote, the teams would go to the most dangerous parts of Lisbon and create real relationships, unquote. Healers would go in and do what? Create real relationships. What if the poor are people who are separated from real relationships? The gentleman who did the talk about the talk about poverty has written 2 books. I think it was him. One moment, please, still checking. No, the guy who did this stuff about addiction is Johann Hari. Now, I have listened to his first book, which is called Lost Connections, in which he suggests that the reason about 10% of us are on antidepressants is because we have lost our connections to each other. His new book, Chasing the Screams, yeah, something like that, is about addiction and how that is also about how we have lost connection with one another. The problem is not that we are bad. The problem is we've forgotten who we are. The problem is that we have forgotten or put aside the idea that we are one. And here we've had the answer all along. We've had the answer all along. This is so easily fixed, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of those things that all we have to do is tweak one little part of our brains, one little part of our thinking. And that person that you hate is now also God. Oh, wait. Simple, but maybe not the easiest thing, right? Maybe changing our thinking is kind of like turning the Titanic. And it needs to be done, yes? Okay. One of the stats I found said that since the 1970s, somebody has been tracking the number of close friends a person could go to in a crisis. In America, that has been going down since the 1970s. And what's gone up is square footage per person in a home. Could there be something together with that? Instead of going out to plays and to movies, now I sit at home and Netflix. Why? Because that way I get to put as much butter as I want on my popcorn. And I don't have to get out of my jammies. Apparently you can't show up at the picture show in your jammies and robe. They look at you funny. Places like this where we come together in the name of love, to love and accept one another, to see the divine in each other. This is where the healing happens. This is where we create world peace in a really real, immediate, Yavapai County way. The circles that we do you think we really needed a circle to get people to open the door and light the candles? Do you really think there needs to be a meeting a month in order to get people doing that and make sure that they're doing it properly? Who here got a hug today? Who here said hi to somebody? All of you are now trained as welcomers. And if you've ever had a birthday cake, you're trained as a candlelighter too. The point of having that monthly meeting is to bring people together to know each other in real relationship, to talk to each other, to know each other's names, to hear, yeah, I'm having a bad day because this is what's going on in my life. Our circles, every single circle, whether the circle is about watching football or praying for people or getting people here to, the heart wheels that you heard about. All of that, the point is to bring small groups of people together to be in real relationship. I was recently told that we are at a 50-year high for suicides in this country right now. The number of suicides is going up. And the issue in my mind, and according to my research, is that we are living very siloed lives. And if we're siloed from each other, I am willing to bet that we are siloed and cut off from the divine within us. If we are not seeing God in each other, we're probably not seeing it in the mirror either. And that is fixable. Maybe not easy, but it is doable. You get into a small group, you are forced to watch football or whatever, maybe get hugs on a Sunday morning, and that heals those things that would put you at risk for things like poverty and addiction and suicide. And it's the one pill everybody can afford, well, not take a pill, but it's the one cure that all of us can afford, is to sit down and look at each other and say, hi, my name is, what's yours? This is the real me. I would suggest to you that if we can do that, everything else falls in place. And Ernest Holmes wrote, the whole purpose of the science of mind is to reconcile the apparent separation of the spiritual world, which must be perfect, with the material world, which appears imperfect. The whole point of coming here on Sunday is not just the cookies. The point of coming here on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday and whatever day suits you, the point of coming here is to reconnect with the divine within you and to let go of the false belief that you are alone in any of this. In any of it. In my meditation after Hazel did prayer with me this morning, I got this image of the 900-pound gorilla as Divine Mother, frankly. Divine Father's great, but you want to see somebody get protective? Go to somebody's mom. The mama bear. I had Divine Mother like a 900-pound gorilla at my back. I was not alone. And so with that sense of being with power, of being with a higher truth, and part of a group with our peeps, we go to prayer. When I pray, what I'm doing is recognizing the divine in this room and the divine in each and every one of us and everybody we know. That puts us on an equal playing field and praying field, so I come down here. And so I bless this time together with the realization that all issues have now been healed. We are one with the divine. We are one with that infinite power, that infinite love, that perfect acceptance of all that we are within our own bodies and in everybody else's too. And so I claim an end to poverty, that false idea that we are separate or less than. I claim an end to addiction to substance and to anything that looks like mental illness or separation or sickness of any kind. And I claim the divine inheritance and the divine family that is and has always been and will always be here for us. I claim the absolute perfection, oneness, wholeness with all of our brothers and sisters, and so we share our food through our garden, and we share our love through our circles and this center. This is a place of massive abundance, and so we share, because without that sharing, our abundance is not complete. And so as we share here and now this knowing with the divine parts of ourselves, with the divine parts of each and every other person here and anywhere on the planet, I declare a new day. I declare a resurrection of our true spirit, knowing that we are one, that it is perfect, we are complete, and we are so loved, and we are so good. I bless that. That is the truth of spirit, and thus the truth of us. There is nothing more to do or say. I let the spirit within each of us get on with it, and so it is.